No bye, no aloha.
Doing it live. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Woo!
Have you ever seen that Sean Hannity thing?
Hold on, wait. Let me introduce you. Ladies and gentlemen, my buddy Nate Rose.
How's it going, everybody?
Fucking from Maui, tattooing. Where do you tattoo at now? I'm sorry.
Mid-Pacific Tattoo
Mid
in Lahaina
pack.
on Lahaina Luna and Waianae.
And geez, man. The story that I remember from meeting you was really, really cool. Like you were in a band called Absence of Void.
Yep.
Let's think about this. 2000, maybe?
It would have been Absence of Void would have been a little later, like maybe
2002? It couldn't have been much later than 2002.
yeah, it was around then.
2001, 2002.
Yeah.
And so you guys are playing at Auto Cake Bakery,
Mm-hmm.
and you specifically, it had to be because I met you and your brother. I thought you guys were twins at the time.
So by then I had already quit Absence of Void.
Oh yeah, you were in another band.
And Noah and Kyle, it was Noah and Kyle and Joe Abraham were playing they were playing in Absence of Void, and I was in a band with Gannon and Andy Gilbert called
Gannon Scumbag?
called
Oh
The Crowd.
shit.
And
Was
so
he there at that show?
He was at
Oh
that
my
show.
god.
So
Wow,
it was,
full circle. I did not know that.
yeah, it was me, Andy Gilbert, and Gannon Gilmore.
Gannon's in a super fucking rad band called The Minorities right now.
Exactly.
Shout out Gannon.
Yeah. So we came over, and we all stayed in the same place. We stayed at Sean Mohan's house, but me and my brother weren't in the same band then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I first met you. And you were
exactly.
like, no tattoos, just this fucking
Yeah,
kid.
I only had my chest tattoo, and that was it. You couldn't
And-
see tattoos.
And you we played at Auto Cake, and you said, "Hey man, from my shitty memory, you said, "Hey man, we want to come back more,
Yep.
and I think we might be starting a new band soon. Like, let me get your info."
Mm-hmm.
And then flash forward like a year, and then Black Square comes over to Maui with Go Jimmy Go
Yep.
for
At the Wonder Bar.
I don't
or
I don't remember that.
Was it the Wonder Bar or the Sand Bar?
But
in
it was
Paia.
we came over for Halloween,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
So we play for Halloween. We played like 2 shows with Go Jimmy Go, and then you guys were there.
Yep.
And it was you and Steve and Noah. Noah had like this big old long goatee, and you guys are just like covered in tattoos. Like I'm like a year later, and I was like, holy shit.
No, it was quite a bit after that.
Was it way later?
It was probably
Oh, you're right.
It was probably
2 years.
2000.
Maybe 2 years.
Dude, I can't remember. Like I think White Rose started.
Otis.
It was Otis for a few months until we realized there was another band called that. And then we named it White Rose, and
But you guys weren't playing yet, I don't think.
we were practicing.
We came over there, and you guys were,
came to the show,
yeah.
and you were sitting outside.
and you were like, hey, we're going to get this band going.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, so the funniest thing is, like, I wasn't really throwing shows or anything like that, but I said, I'll get you guys on shows, like,
Yeah.
whatever. And then you hit me up and you go, hey, we want to come over to Oahu.
Yep.
And we're ready to come over. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
You guys can stay with me. We'll throw some shows. We did a show at Kainoa's, the original Pancake House on the North Shore.
Yep.
And then we did a show at, I think, just like Coffee Talk.
We did shows at Coffee Talk, and then we did shows at what was the one that had the upstairs and the downstairs?
Detox.
We did Detox a bunch too.
Okay. But
Yeah.
like that, I just remember that first time you guys all came over, stayed with me, and I was like, whoa. And you had just gotten your fucking Hawaii bomb
Yeah, my
on your
hand, yeah.
hand. And you're like, yeah, I can't go swimming or anything. And I was like, holy shit, you guys got fucking all these tattoos. What the fuck? And you're like, Yeah, whatever.
We were
like,
just hanging out. Me and my brother hung out at tattoo shops since we were like little kids. So as soon as we were old enough, we just started getting free tattoos.
That's so rad.
So we just kept getting other shit. Like I wish I didn't get so much.
Whatever.
Like I have stuff that like valuable real estate with shitty tattoos
yeah.
that I wish I
Well,
had waited.
Same here, but it is what it is.
And I try, like now I try to talk clients into that. Like, hey, don't do this here because later when you actually realize what a good tattoo is, you're going to want to put something better there.
I do the same thing just with friends.
Yeah.
I got friends who are like getting sleeved up, and I'm like, listen, work on your legs.
Yeah.
You just want to have the tattoos,
Yeah.
get your legs done. Legs are so much cooler. Like having full leg sleeves is so rad.
Well, the older you get, the more it hurts too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wish I had done my back, my legs, and the front of my torso, like the really painful spots. I wish I had done that stuff first, because the arms and legs, like arms are super cake, legs are cake compared to torso.
Yeah.
But I wish I had done all that other stuff a little earlier, and like I only had my arms left to do.
But hey,
Because now I have one side of my ribs to do, one side of my ribs not done at all.
yeah.
And-
My whole front is an outline that I have not filled in because
Yeah.
I'm just a fucking pussy.
And I've got I've had my back outline for 9 years probably.
Yeah, my front's probably been outlined around the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Rachel made a deal with me when she goes to San Francisco to get her back work done by Luke. I have to get my back work done by James.
And that's so what shop?
You
You got to give the shout outs.
She gets tattooed by Luke at Seventh Son. And like Grime works there.
Oh,
Luke-
really?
Yeah, Luke works
I thought
there.
what?
Grime had Skull and Sword for
That's the
years.
one I knew, yeah.
With Andre Malcolm and another dude, I can't remember his name right now. But it was more of a private studio
Yeah.
deal. Like you had to get buzzed up to get in. And when he shut that down, I don't know for sure, but I think he was friends with Luke for a long time, and I think he just hit Luke up and was like, "Hey, can we like come work at your shop?"
So that's in the city.
It's in SF, and I've never been there. Rachel, like when me and Rachel first started hanging out, she went there and got tattooed 3 days in a row by him,
Hell yeah.
and it's an amazing back piece, But yeah, I don't know.
Sweet. And so
I'm scared to get my back work done.
I'm scared to get any tattoo ever.
Mhm.
They suck. They're the worst. So you've been tattooing now full time for what, like, I would guess like 4 or 5 years?
I think almost 5 years now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was a well driller, and I've had my license in Hawaii for almost 10 years.
And you were
or about-
tattooing back and
About
forth.
10
like,
years. And I tattooed, and then I got married.
Oops.
Oops. So I didn't tattoo for a long time, and I just kept drilling wells, and I was drilling wells for my dad. He owned the well drilling company, so I was in this quandary of I was making really good money drilling wells because I'd done it since I was 14. I just kind of took a test to graduate, and was like, okay, I'm just working. So since I was 14, I've worked every day. And so when I was about 22, I'm 39 now. So I think when I was when I was about 25, I think I got my tattoo license, or 26. And I started tattooing. And then I quit, went to work with my dad, or kept working for my dad, got married, didn't tattoo. And then I think it was 28 when I got divorced, and then tattooed a little bit again. And then the shop I was at, it didn't work out that good.
Where was that?
I was working for
Is that the hot rod?
no, Hot Rod's where I learned. I was tattooing with Circle up in Wailuku, and I wasn't really. It was a custom shop, and all the dudes there were super good tattooers, but there was no walk-in traffic.
And
at
you were
all.
still just kind of learning to draw.
And I was still
learning to-
like I didn't. Yeah, I drew my whole life, but I drew stuff that like basically the same kind of stuff you do when you're in high school and you're doodling on your folder,
right.
in math class. Like I knew how to draw the stuff that I like to draw, but I didn't really know how to draw.
Yeah, there's a lot involved, right? Like there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. So when I started tattooing, I essentially had to learn how to actually draw. And I'm still doing it every day. I sit with a Sharpie in the back of the shop, and I just like if I'm in between tattoos, I'll just sit with a Sharpie, watch something on my computer, and just mess around with Sharpies and just practice and refine things. Yeah, so then I didn't really work again, and then I moved to Pittsburgh, and I tattooed there for about 8 months. That was all I did. And then a couple guys quit working for my dad, and so I moved back to Hawaii and worked with my dad again and didn't tattoo at all.
It seems like that well drilling was really the fucking bane of your tattooing.
Yeah, well, it was like
It was like a good way to make money.
it was a good solid paycheck, and my dad was the boss. So it was the thing of
Yeah.
like, do I want to, like, I know my dad would be disappointed if I stopped working for him, and the money was good, and it's scary to quit a steady paycheck for
Yeah.
something.
That's what you got to do, though. Anytime you're doing a passion thing,
Yeah, you have to
go full on.
take the leap.
Yeah.
And so what finally happened is I was tattooing at night after well drilling, and this guy Alan and this guy Wrath walked into the shop in Paia where I was working at Paia Tattoo Parlor, and they were standing in the front and they hadn't really been greeted yet. And so I walked up to Alan and Wrath, and I said, "Hey, have you guys been helped?" Blah, blah. And we ended up hitting it off. Wrath moved back to Maui about a year later and hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm living here now." And he owns a shop in Washington called Bulldog. But he's tattooed here in Oahu. He grew up in Oakland. He's a very good tattooer. And hit me up, and we became pretty good friends. And I was just doing tattooing part time, and he told me, he's like, "Hey, you either need to go full time into well drilling or go full time into tattooing." He's like,
Yep.
"You're not doing yourself any favors by kind of having one foot in and one foot out
That's
of
the
both
classic Christian parable
of
the
both
Yeah.
jobs, right?" So my buddy Matt Deal, who grew up on Maui, he lived in Oregon for years. When we actually weren't friends growing up, he was quite a bit older than me, or not quite a bit, but a few years older than me, and we weren't really in the same groups. I knew who he was. We'd surf at the same beach and stuff, but he moved back from Oregon, and when he moved back from Oregon, or we was thinking about moving back from Oregon, he ended up coming by the shop, and we kind of became buddies after the fact. And he was working at Mid-Pacific in Lahaina, and where I was at in Paia wasn't busy, and I was thinking, I was like, I'm not tattooing enough to. I won't make enough money to pay my bills if I quit and work
Right.
here.
Exactly.
And so I hit Matt up and I said, "Hey, can you get me a job in Lahaina with you?" And he's like, "Let me see what I can do." And he got me a job there, and he got me a job there full time. I quit drilling, and since then I've been tattooing. That's my sole income.
Full time.
Yeah, like
Dude, that's what's up. I
yeah.
remember all of that time, and I remember telling you, like, dude, you gotta stop doing the fucking wells. You gotta just tattoo. And you're like,
Mhm.
well, I gotta make sure I can fucking survive and all this and
Yeah.
that. That's
When
a
it
wild.
was-
That's a
it's
wild
hard.
fucking
It's
ride,
the other
though.
thing of like, well drilling was the only thing I knew, and I hadn't hired, but I had kind of hired my best friend at the time, Kurt, to work with me, and so I felt like I might be letting him down if I quit, because we worked together every day and ran a crew, and then it was my dad's thing, but I don't know. Me and my dad have he left my mom, and like I love my mom, and we have I still live on my mom's property and help her like take care of the property, and so I felt a little like it took a while for me to kind of drop some of that allegiance that I had to my dad,
Yeah.
and just figure out like, this is my, when I would go to bed at night, I wouldn't think about well drilling unless I had like really fucked something up bad,
Right. But you're definitely thinking about
But
tattooing.
yeah,
all the time.
like I would come home from well drilling after like a 12-hour day or even longer, and sit at the desk and like draw stuff until like 4 a.m. And
It's your real passion.
yeah, that's my real passion. So now, like, I drive 2 hours a day to get to work round trip. If that was a job, there's no way I could do it, because I could find something that paid about the same closer to my house.
Yeah.
But being able to go and do, I don't have a job. I go and do, like, I have fun all day long. Like, me and Jared joke around. Like, Fanny, the counter girl, like, she's a good friend of ours. Anthony works there.
Super sick.
Like, we all have fun. We all hang out together, and
That's, I feel like,
yeah, I don't work.
almost everyone's dream
Yeah,
in this world is to find a way to have fun and make money at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. I personally feel that maybe it's just because I believe it, because I was talking to Warren last night, and he was on the podcast, and we talked about that same subject, about like, it's like that hokey saying, like, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And I really do believe that, and I really live by that. And what I believe, which is probably because I believe it, so it's right, is that I can do one thing to make money, and I can do one thing for my passion.
yeah,
Or not necessarily one, but I can do one thing to make money, and I can do whatever my passions are.
yeah,
But I can't survive solely on my passion, because once it becomes a job, I'll view it differently.
yeah.
But you still seem to find a way to make that work.
Well, you can't view it as a job. Like, if you view it as a job, I would say it may not really be your passion.
Mm.
It might be something that you're into because it's not your main thing.
But what about this? So you have tattooing for job,
Yeah,
but you also still have music on the side.
yeah.
Which one do you think tattooing is probably still the priority?
Oh yeah, when my brother moved back, and we started practicing again, I had a conversation with Steve and Noah, and I said,
So just for context, Steve is a guitar player from your band.
From
You
White
play
Rose,
drums
yeah.
for White Rose, and then Noah, your brother, is the singer.
yeah. So I had a conversation with them, and I said, "Hey, I love being in the band. Having Kanoa in the band is really a plus. And I love doing this, and it's fun. But tattooing is the thing that I think about when I go to sleep. You know, it's the
That's
stuff I
awesome.
dream about. Like we've done like the touring thing. We've like got in the van, like doing that whole thing, and that's really fun. But I know for a fact if I did that full time, it would turn into a job for me.
Yeah, that's how I
And
feel.
I never, like, obviously I'll get a client every once in a while where I'm like, they have a bad idea. I'm trying to push them to a good idea and they're not buying it. And so I'll do a tattoo that I'm not necessarily super stoked on, but they walk out the door super stoked. And so even though I wasn't super stoked on the tattoo, the fact that that made their day or year, that
That does it for you.
it pumps me up, you know, because I did something for somebody, and I have to sometimes remind myself that I am in a service industry. You know, if
there you
someone
go. Yeah.
if someone orders a steak or someone orders spaghetti, like I'm not going to give them like a fish sandwich
Yeah.
because they want what they want, and as long as it's a tattoo that's going to age well, and it's not a, you know, like as long as the tattoo's clean and it's a decent
Yeah,
tattoo,
you can stand behind it.
even if it's something that I'm not really stoked on because they wouldn't let me kind of redraw it a little better or whatever. If it's a good tattoo that's going to hold up over time, it's a clean tattoo, then seeing their excitement makes me stoked.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I don't feel like I work. I don't feel like I have a job.
Sounds like
And
the dream.
And I feel, and because of doing physical labor from 14 to 34, 35, like my body's broken from doing that stuff. And I realize how lucky I am to not actually have to go to work,
Yeah.
you know, to just be able to like drive to work, drink some coffee, listen to some music, listen to a podcast, get to work, sit in the AC, listen to music that I want to listen to, talk to people, hang out with my friends, and then go home and like hang out with my girlfriend, my animals is like,
Yeah. 100% the dream.
yeah, I'm extremely lucky to have the life that I have.
That's totally the dream. So, we were talking about when you first started coming over, you only had the one tattoo,
Yeah, I had the one on my chest.
and that was,
It's a big cross with the Jesus Saves above it.
yeah,
It was Jamie Thomas had it, the
right,
pro skater.
right.
And when I was a kid, that was like, I thought Jamie Thomas was the shit. So I wanted that tattoo.
So, but you were pretty religious to be putting a Jesus Saves on your chest, right?
Well, my dad was a pastor,
Oh shit.
and so I grew up in that. I grew up in that environment. So it was something.
And you got that around what, like 18,
I was 17.
17?
Yeah,
So flash forward 25, or no, what would that be?
I'm bad at math.
Yeah, I know.
You figure it out.
So about 20 years.
A lot of years. Yeah,
Flash forward 20 years.
3 years.
But you never covered
22
it up.
years.
You had a was it you
Never
had a big
covered it up.
Jesus,
I had a Jesus face on my arm.
which you did cover up.
The only reason I covered it up is because I didn't like the tattoo.
So Jesus tattoos, and I mean, I only know this because I know you so well. You had Almighty watching
Yep.
on your fingers. You
Yeah.
covered it up.
Yeah.
You covered up the Jesus. You
Yeah.
did not cover up the cross, though.
No. I still have the cross, and I still have the Jesus Saves, and my girlfriend makes fun of me all the time.
Do you think Jesus saves?
No. Yeah. But
No.
I didn't cover up my knuckles or my Jesus face on my arm because because I didn't want the tattoo or I don't agree with it. Like, I see tattoos as even, like, I've got a lot of shitty tattoos still that I don't cover up because I see those as that was a part of my life at a time.
Yeah.
Whether or not,
so why do you decide
whether
to
or
cover
not
that?
whether or not I still agree or believe in those things, or whether or not I ever did, it was a time in my life where I got that, and there was a reason that I got it. The reason I covered up the Jesus face is because the tattoo wasn't good.
Okay.
It was a bad tattoo, and it bugged me. And then the reason I covered up my knuckles is because I was sick of explaining to people every day what my knuckles said.
Yeah.
And then
I want to cover my fingers.
yeah. And
for
then
the same
people,
reason.
when someone will say, "Hey, what do your knuckles say?" Well, it says this. And then you have
What's
to say,
that mean?
and why is that? And then I have to say, like, well, it's a line from my favorite Bad Brains song. And then they're like, "Who's the Bad Brains?" And I have to get in a 15-minute conversation every time I'm at a checkout line at
Right.
Whole Foods, and it's I'm just like I was just over it. So
So, when did you kind of make the transition from the Christian thing out? 'Cause we've known each other for so long, and I never was one to want to get into debates with close friends
yeah,
about that sort of thing. And I've had my kind of I've gone so many different ways on things that I believe and things that I think, but I think I've finally settled into a little more of a path that I'm on. Not like I feel like I know everything by any means,
Yeah.
but I feel like I'm more on a path where I'm on a learning path towards something, and I feel like a little bit more settled on that.
Yeah.
Just science-based
yeah.
kind of ideas. But we never really got into that sort of a thing, really.
I think since I was young, well, so growing up as a kid, my dad instilled this sense of fear in us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, oh, you do this, like
You go to hell.
The Bible says you'll go to hell, or
Yeah.
you do this, the Bible says you go to hell, and God knows what you're thinking.
And that's really heavy for a kid.
And it's really heavy for a kid.
to think
And
about.
dude, it's still sometimes I think about like even now I'm like, oh, what if I like was on my deathbed? Would I go back to that
right,
and be like, oh, I'm sorry, God, like
right.
for all this stuff, and please forgive me, I'm dying, like I don't want to go to hell. Like I'll be driving and I'll think about that, like, is there something still just because it's instilled in you since you're such a little kid?
Mm-hmm.
And
Why, dude? I was raised Mormon since the day
Yeah.
I was born.
and so it's that, right? And but the thing that really did it for me was me and my brother grew up surfing. Our dad liked surfing. So we'd go to the beach and we'd surf. And then our dad would buy surf videos and we watch surf videos. But the surf videos always had like punk rock songs on them or like hard rock songs. So my dad bought this video called Playground, and it was a Rusty video. And it had NoFX. It had I forget the NoFX song that was on there. It had 10-Foot Pole, and I don't know what that one. And it had Minor Threat on there. And I think those were the only other punk songs. I think those were the only punk songs on there. It had like a REM song and a Silverchair song.
I love REM.
And those songs did nothing for me.
Sure.
But the NoFX song, the 10-Foot Pole song, and then the Minor Threat song, when my parents would leave, me and my brother would listen to it, and we would listen to it loud because my dad wouldn't let us listen to it. And then my friend came over with a Bad Religion. He came over with Bad Religion Suffer. He's like, hey, check this punk band out. And I was like, oh, I didn't know anything. He showed me that, and I said, oh, this is surf music.
Or did you ever think like, I can't listen to a band called Bad Religion, or I don't know?
No, I didn't really give a shit.
Okay.
I was like, I just remember thinking like, I didn't know what punk rock was. I was like, this is surf music, because I had seen it in surf videos. And he's like, no, it's punk rock. And I was like, what the fuck is punk rock? Like I didn't know anything. And he was like also in church. So he showed me like bands like probably bands you've never heard of, like Value Pack, this band called Goaty Hook, 90 Pound Wuss, The Crucified, like all like
These Christian bands?
and they're like Christian hardcore bands.
Okay.
And bands that also like throughout the course of their career ended up being like shunned by the more conservative or devout, like the more conservative Christian circles.
Yeah.
Because
I just know MXPX. Did they end up? Are they still in good with the Christians or
no? Well, at least Mike Herrera is like
He's
claims that he's not at all. I don't know about any of the other members in the band.
From
And that
what
wasn't
I know,
even a band that I was super into, but it was like when I was a kid, like Teenage Politics and what's the other one where they're
Going the Way of the Buffalo?
not that one, the one before that dude Coop did the artwork for.
Yeah, I know.
They had the punk with the jock on the cover.
Right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, all their earlier stuff I really liked. I really liked their stuff.
still like the new stuff. Mike Herrera actually has a podcast.
Oh, nice.
And he's interviewing dudes like guys from dudes from other like bands that used to be more Christian bands. And then also like he plays bass in Goldfinger now.
Yeah. He played bass with them when they came out here.
Yeah, so he's their touring bass player, or pretty much their main bass player.
Oh.
And then he had his band Tumble Down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I went he showed me Christian bands, like he showed me Bad Religion, and then he also showed me like, okay, there's like hardcore bands where it's like Christian guys too, but they're not. Some of them were singing about religious things, and some of them were singing about like regular shit that like normal punk bands would sing about, like politics.
So do you think that it was the music that kind of led you away?
It wasn't the music. It was the message of the music.
Bad Religion.
So and no, not even that. So I could reconcile that, because I was like, okay, that's different but it's fine. What took me the other way was, once I got into that, then I ended up getting into bands like Propagandhi.
Oh yeah.
Who is still like, that's my all-time, like, of bands that still play, that's my favorite band.
I love Propagandhi.
And then Black Flag, Minor Threat, Bad Brains, obviously. And then I ended like, a lot of bands that had like, bands like Propagandhi that had a very like political message, a very leftist message. And that's what did it. Like bands having like a Noam Chomsky quote on the record. And I'm like, oh, who's Noam Chomsky? And then I read something, and that's what the politics of punk rock, more so than the rebellion of it, took me in the opposite direction of the people in church that I saw every day.
For me, like, I remember when I met Josh 86, and I, when we got to know each other, finding out like, oh, you were raised Mormon, I was raised Mormon.
Yeah.
And he was just very, that shit's fucked.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure yet. I was young, man. I was like 18 when I met Josh.
I
think.
had the same thing.
Yeah. And I was like, you know how hard it is to be raised from the day you're born by the people who you love most, who love you most. They're telling you this is what's real.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to just about face.
Yep.
I'm out of here.
One, especially with such a dire consequence of
Yeah, you go to hell.
Yeah, going to hell when you die. Like the entire way, and this is one of the things that really fucked me up was like, okay, if you do this, you're going to hell, and then you ask the pastor a question, and he's like, I don't know the answer.
Yep.
And it's like, well, don't you talk to God? Won't God give you the answer? And he's like, well, it says right here in the Bible that the wisdom of man is like foolishness to God.
Right.
So it's basically like
It's a loophole.
God knows better than you, and you can't question God. But if you do bad shit, you're going to hell.
There's a lot
Like-
of loopholes written into this parable.
Yeah.
And I like to take the simplest route, which is why I would love to have a simple conversation without any argument with a Christian who still believes, because
Yeah.
that's not you. But I would love to be like, what's your view on dogs? Because in the Garden of Eden was all the animals, right? But humans made dogs.
Yeah.
We took wolves, started hanging out with humans.
Mm-hmm.
We made a bond. We hunted well together.
Yeah.
We hung out together, and then eventually they were bred down into dogs, and then rapidly we started making we created breeds of dog, and dogs directly come from wolves.
Yeah.
It's just a wolf that's been bred down.
Yeah.
So what about that? Did God make dogs, or did he allow us to make dogs?
I don't even think that's a thing.
I just like the simple.
I think you can ask them a lot more pointed questions.
Well, I mean,
like okay, you're anti-abortion, but you also vote Republican, right? So what about all these kids that go into like youth homes and are abused in prisons?
see, that's
like
a
youth
whole other thing.
like that's the thing that did it for me with the whole religious side of everything was, okay, Jesus did a lot of cool shit.
If he was a real person.
If he was a real person. I think he definitely, like, there are other historians of the time that wrote of a dude that was doing like some miraculous shit, whether it was real or not.
We're talking about 300 years of stories by mouth, right? We're talking about
no, like at the time there were Greek historians that were writing about a dude that was doing this stuff. Like, and I mean that's a non-point, right? Because I can write a book in 1,000 years about Nate and Nick, and say like they walked around Chinatown, and they went to Downbeat, and they went to Proof, and that's what Christians point to, is they say like, well, look, there actually was this city at this exact time that the Bible says it was there.
Okay.
And it's like, just because it's historically accurate doesn't mean that Nick
The shit was happening.
healed a blind woman.
Yeah.
Like you can write that we went to Downbeat tonight, and just because Downbeat actually existed 1,000 years ago doesn't mean that you actually healed a blind woman.
Well, man, think about this. If we're telling stories, if we're giving, very, very intricate stories
Yeah.
about something that happened 300 years ago,
Yeah.
which is basically how the Bible or the New Testament was written,
Yeah.
how accurate could we possibly get? I couldn't really tell you what happened
No.
last week.
And I mean, back then the Jews were extremely vigilant about passing things down in an undistorted manner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I have no problem believing certain historical things that are written in the Bible, because archaeologists do find a lot of things that back up the historical aspect of, like, okay, this town existed,
Sure.
but my whole thing is, like, just because that happened doesn't mean, just because those places existed doesn't mean that everything in there is 100% factual.
For
And
sure.
if you're going to believe it, you have to believe that everything happened.
That's the other thing. Why do you have to believe that everything is, everything needs to be taken for fact? Why can't it be just a parable? Why can't it just be a story to learn from?
I think the Old Testament, like, I think the Old Testament definitely could be taken as, I mean, when a lot of the first books were written, it was a lot. If you look at other historical writings at the time, it was a very poetic time in writing. So you'll even find Christians that are like, okay, well, the 6-day creation story, the style of writing at the time was a lot more poetic and I don't know what the word would be. It was just a lot. It wasn't necessarily a type of writing to be taken literally.
Well, yeah, we're talking about metaphors here, right?
Yeah, so it was very metaphorical writing. So you'll find there's actually Christians that have written books. There's Christians that subscribe to a philosophy called Old Earth Creationism, which is basically evolution that Christians feel all right to back, because they're like, okay, in Genesis, it doesn't actually mean a literal 6 days. They're like, that's a metaphor for, and a lot of Christians will say, like, well, it's written in there, like a day to man is like 1,000 years to God, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but
there's always the loophole. There's always the loophole.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like if you have questions, you ask the pastor. The pastor's like, I don't know the answer. Then
pray about it.
You're like, well, aren't you supposed to be in direct communication with God?
Well,
Won't he tell you the answer? And then he says, well, God says you kind of can't question him because he knows more than you do. And then it goes full circle where you're kind of like in this thing where, like, okay, God said it. I have to either believe it or not. And if I don't believe it, I'm going to hell. And if I do believe it, like, I might be going to heaven, but I don't feel right believing this shit that someone can't give me an answer for. And so, and also then, like, taking it back to getting into punk rock and where my path, like, really started to merge away was the very, like, the leftist politics that I was confronted with in punk rock.
Yeah.
And that I really agreed with. And those didn't couple with the pastor getting up on stage on Sunday and telling you, like, hey, as a church, we need to vote for George Bush because George Bush is anti-abortion. He's not for gay marriage. And those two things, I was like, even at the time when I was into that stuff, I was like, okay, well, maybe that's all right. You know, maybe as Christians, like, that's what you're supposed to do. But then the other things that really bugged me was, like, okay, in the Old Testament, God told the Israelites to go take this city and kill every man, woman, and child in the city. And then I asked the pastor about it, and he's like, well, they were bad people and this and that.
Every man, woman, and child
And
was
I
a
was
bad person.
and I was like, well, like, what did those kids do? And he's like, well, those kids might have grown up to be like their parents. And then I'm like, okay, well, like, you're anti-abortion, but then a single mom has a kid. She's a drug addict, dies of a drug overdose. The kid's living on the streets. The kid's a homeless dude, and then you're anti-welfare, and you're calling these people freeloaders because they're on the street panhandling, or they're having like an EBT card or something. And it just none of the shit washed with me.
Yeah.
And it was just a slow go like the opposite way of that.
I think
because
you and me
couldn't
were
reconcile it.
really similar in that way, that it was like when you're brainwashed, and for a lack of a better term, as a child into a religion.
Yeah.
And all you're told is this is the truth, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And you just believe it. Eventually you get to a point where you start to reason with it and you go, this is wacky. And it felt bad. I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Just even questioning it. It felt
Mhm.
like I was doing something wrong.
Yep.
And but then when you just start to use the slightest bit of reason, everything crumbles.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Everything crumbles. And it just yeah, I feel like it's wacky that it's even so popular still.
Yeah.
I think it's really crazy. I think that the number of atheists in America is going up drastically, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't know where we're at. Me and Josh were talking about it the other day, but it was he tossed out some number to me. I wish I had somebody here to fucking Google.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so that's cool. I mean, the amount of people
gonna go
around.
pee.
Oh, you got to do a pee, huh? Yeah, that happens from time to time. It happens. But the number of people around that are going all in on any one religion. I mean, there's a lot of religions around, and they're all claiming to be the one. It's kind of ridiculous. It's 100% ridiculous to me, but So Nate took a pee, and I took a little quick look on Google, and it was actually around the 20% that 20% of people that identify as atheists, which I think is low. But one of the things is about the census is I think that like if I died, it would say Mormon on my grave because I am
oh yeah.
I'm still registered as Mormon. But I think the amount of people that would allow themselves to still be registered that way, I know some people personally that have been have made a point to be like, I want to disassociate that purposefully. I'm definitely atheist, and being raised that way, I think it's difficult. I feel like it's a difficult path to come out of. But all it takes is just a little bit of reasoning, and once you get there, that's shit, man.
You're still gonna have being that way. You're still gonna have a lot of guilt from the way that you were raised, that when you're really in a hard time, you have to kind of do some work within yourself and be like, okay, like,
for me,
is this shit real? Is it not? And I had this argument with my mom, not an argument, but conversations like this with my mom.
She's Jewish, right?
So she's
of the Jewish faith.
She's of the Jewish faith, but she's what you would call a messianic Jew, which is so when in the Old Testament it spoke of, okay, there's a Messiah coming and he's going to sacrifice himself for us, and then that's it, right? Then it's through that you gain forgiveness for your sins and this and that. So so the Jews would sacrifice doves if you were poor, or pigeons if you were poor, and then if you had more money, you would sacrifice a lamb or a bull. And then once Jesus came and died on the cross, that was supposedly
The ultimate sacrifice.
he was the final sacrifice.
Yeah.
So you don't have to sacrifice anything anymore. And so the difference between someone that identifies as a Jew these days, like in the traditional sense, they don't believe that when Jesus came, he was the sacrifice. They believe that they're still waiting for the Messiah. And the Messianic Jews believe that, okay, it was this before. Jesus came now. He died for us. Now we don't have to do the sacrifices anymore. It's all done. And a lot of the Old Testament law, as far as like, you can't eat pork or you can't eat this or that. Like a lot of modern day Christians will go to breakfast and get bacon, whereas Messianic Jews still subscribe to the kosher laws and things like that. But the things that I have, like me and my mom have conversations, and I ask her, I say like, okay, the Mormons say when, like, you know it's real because you feel the burning in your bosom. And a Muslim will, certain radical Muslims will strap a bomb vest on and go blow themselves up because they believe that they're going to have 70 some virgins and the whole thing. So it's like, okay, you believe this with all your heart. The Buddhist guy believes this with all his heart. The Muslim guy believes it enough that he'll blow himself up. So how are you trying to tell me that just because you believe it so much, that makes it real?
Yeah.
You can, I mean, you see it every day, is you can believe something with all your heart and that doesn't make it true,
Yeah.
So I think
it's a tough one. It's a tough one when you're raised to believe a certain thing. It's a real tough one, but for me, it's pretty easy at this point to just look at scientific proof that Noah's Ark, for instance, I like to take it to the most simple terms. For me, like that's why I was referencing like the dog thing. Noah's Ark, if you were supposed to be somebody who believes this to be the word of God and it's all true, first of all, how many times did it get translated? How many times did the words get twisted up to be something else?
Yeah.
That first of all. And then second of all, those things just don't add up. Noah's Ark, every animal on a boat.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then you go back even more. I mean, this is like the Religulous documentary, but that fable, that parable, that story was told in how many different times? Maybe that was just a little story,
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and the thing is, like, I wouldn't call myself an atheist. I would say I would definitely call myself an agnostic. So say there is a hell and there's a heaven, right? Is God like such a dick that if you don't believe everything exactly how, I mean, and it's not even exactly how everybody thinks it, like every Christian thinks it should be, because you've got Catholics, you've got Lutherans, you've got Presbyterians, and then you've got like
Just
so
little
those are-
minor different
those
rules.
and those are the more like traditional ones. They wear the robes. They do like a lot of there's a lot of tradition to everything. And then you've got non-denominational Christians, which are like a lot more like they have tattoos and they're a little bit edgier, and and it's like there's not out of all the, I don't know how many, I'm sure we could look it up, like how many sects of Christianity there are. There's probably over 100, and they don't even agree with each other, and it's all up to interpretation. You have the whole Assemblies of God, which believe in speaking in tongues, and you have other churches that don't believe in speaking in tongues, and I think it all kind of boils down to if the people that subscribe to this can't even agree with each other, so who's to say who's right? And then if like saying I'm an agnostic is like, okay, maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't. But if God's like that big of a dick that you have to subscribe to this super strict, like dogmatic doctrine, do you really even like, if you do die and you're wrong, do you even want to go there?
Right.
Like, and I don't think that would be, I don't think that would be awesome.
Yeah, why would it? There's so many things for me that I like, that I think, as far as God, as far as I was taught, is basically timeless. He was the same in the beginning as he was now, as he will be in the end. Now, if that was the case, well, why would there be an Old Testament and a New? Why would there be rules that change? Why would there ever be a rule that was different? Up until being raised Mormon, that was one of the things that I remember when I met Josh. He pointed out to me really quickly, and I wasn't the smartest kid. I wasn't that sharp on paying attention to all the little details, but I did remember this one. And it wasn't until around the 70s that the Mormon Church would allow black people to receive the priesthood, which is the power of God to be endowed upon you. And they wouldn't allow black people to have that priesthood, that power, until the 70s in the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It was also written by a 14-year-old kid that was a mass murderer.
That was, the story of Joseph Smith is...
Yeah, the dude was fucked up. And I think if you look into a lot of religions, it's, I get I get it. Like, we don't know what happens when we die. For us being relatively young, that's fine. Because we don't feel like we're going to die anytime soon. So we don't really worry about it. But a dude that's in his 60s or 70s that's diagnosed with like lung cancer, the dude's like, oh shit.
Looking for
like,
that deeper meaning.
He wants like, okay, so like I kind of believe like, if I had to say like what I believe in, like we have this life and live it to the fullest, and you die and everything goes black. And like I want to be either like buried like outside of a casket, just like a hole dug in the ground, or put into the ocean. So things like I either want to get eaten by bugs, so I am part of the circle of life, or I want to be put in the ocean, so I'm eaten by like fish or sharks, so I'm part of the circle of life. Like, I just don't, I don't feel like, I don't know, I just don't feel like, I feel like people want to believe in something because they're scared of being nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like you have this life. You know, we can go to the bar and have some drinks with our friends. You can go surfing, you can go to a concert, you can go skateboarding, and all of that's over. And I think people, as they get older, probably have a problem reconciling, like, okay, this is all, like, what happens if I die in 2 months?
I had a really vivid dream just recently, and it put me at a lot of ease. I, first of all, after all of this, brainwashing from childhood age up until now, I believe everything is chaos. I believe that if there's any power in this universe, the only thing is gravity. Gravity is, everything just gets pulled towards the more dense matter. Everything in this solar system gets pulled towards the sun. Everything in our galaxy gets pulled towards a massive black hole that's in our galaxy. And that's the only thing that, as far as science can show, is really governing anything.
Yeah.
So in this dream I had the other night, basically, there was that missile scare.
Yeah.
However long ago that was, and it was some sort of dream like that. Either there was a missile or there was an asteroid or whatever. I'm having this dream, and I remember being outside in the world, and in the dream something's coming that's basically going to destroy us. And I remember seeing the asteroid or missile come down, and I remember just going towards it and being like, I'd rather just die in this impact than try and run away from it. And it was a really peaceful dream because I wasn't scared of death when it was imminent. And people want to make more of this life than it is. We just have these fucking brains that like to put so much meaning on something that isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
We like to take a look at the fact that these two things coincide. Well, that must mean something. I really don't think anything means anything. I don't think that just because a couple things coincide that it has any relevance at all. That's just me. But yeah, it was really nice to have that feeling in that dream where I felt like nothing mattered, and it was okay. You could say goodbye to this life, and whatever happens. Nobody knows what happens when you die, but
Well, and if it all goes black, what's so wrong with that?
nothing. Yeah.
Like if you lived a life that you're stoked on, like, I mean, dude, we live in probably the nicest place in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have the best weather in the entire world. We both get to do, like, basically we both don't really work.
Yeah.
Like we kind of work. I pay my bills drawing pictures on people.
Yep. I pour people drinks.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so when you die and it all turns black, that's cool. Like, if I died tomorrow and everything was black, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
My mom would be bummed. My brother would be bummed. But I'm fine with it. Like, I feel like a lot. I feel like the thing about, I feel like, and I don't know this for sure, but I feel my gut feeling is that religion was kind of created by people that were afraid to die.
Well, I also think it was created by people who wanted to instill fear in people to control them.
That's
It's a really
possible.
easy way.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at what was going on during George W.'s era of okay, these things are bad. So be scared of this and do what we say. And there was a lot of that going on at the time.
Yeah.
I remember I was living in LA, and the band I was in was like, we're going to go tour in Mexico. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought as Americans, we can't go to Mexico right now because we'll just be killed. And most of the people in the band were actually Mexican, and they were like, oh, you're crazy. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I called my uncle who lives in Ensenada,
Yeah.
and he goes, no, just come to Mexico, man.
Yeah.
What's going on is it's spring break,
Mm-hmm.
and America's in deficit.
Yeah.
And what they don't need is people traveling outside the country to go spend more money somewhere else. Not to say that terrible things weren't happening. For sure there were. The facts are the facts. Like, there were terrible things
Yeah.
happening. But were they not always? And are they not still? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't just let fear rule everything. You got to live your life.
Yep. Oh, 100%. And I mean, if you die doing something that you love, like you could live 150, or what, we don't live that long, but you could live 100 years, 98 years playing it safe, and you're on your deathbed like, man, I wish I had done that, or I wish I had done this.
Yeah.
Or you could live to 80, or maybe you go live to 70 or 50 or 45, and you die doing something you love. Like, I don't think you need to be scared of it, because none of us know. Like, how many friends have we had that you're like, holy shit, that dude died?
Yeah.
Like, that dude got hit by a car, or that dude like got hit by a drunk driver. And that's the reality, is that could happen to either one of us tomorrow. Like, I'm flying back to Maui tomorrow. My plane could crash.
Good.
And like, but if I hadn't flown over here this weekend, I wouldn't have like done this with you. I wouldn't have seen my friend's art show.
I have so
Like-
much anxiety when I'm on planes that I always think about that. I always think, if this plane, every time I think,
But if it does,
this plane's gonna go down,
it does. And
most of the
you
time
have
I'm
no
like,
control
man,
over it.
I just want to keep on. I just want to travel as much as I possibly can.
Mhm.
I just want to keep doing as many things as I possibly can. I don't want to be on a plane thinking to myself like, this, for instance, oh, this plane's going down. Like, God damn it, I still got money in the bank. I wish I spent that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Anything like that.
Yeah, I think you should just do what you do. And I don't think, like, none of us know what happens when we die. So why be scared of it? Just
Yeah.
like, live your life. And I ride my Enduro to work all the time. Like, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, you could get
You
clipped
know,
easily. and
I
just-
almost get hit by cars a lot. Or I drive dumb to where I'm putting myself in danger. And you know what? It's fun to ride fast on your bike. And so I do it, and I've been in some sketchy situations where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do that. And then next week I do it anyways. And I think it's the main thing is to live your life to the fullest, and you're going to go when you're going to go. And none of us know when that is. And you could play it safe and get hit by a car. You could go balls to the wall and live till you're 80, or you could go balls to the wall and live, like, get in a motorcycle accident.
But either way,
But you
it is what it is.
you don't know. And I personally would prefer to just like, okay, I feel like doing this now. I'm going to do it. And not that I don't think about the consequences of my actions, because I do. But at the same time, I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to be an idiot, but I'm also not going to play it extremely safe.
Yeah, you're definitely not one that plays it safe for as long as I've known you. You've
Yeah,
never been the one that played it super safe.
Yeah, I just want to do like, I don't know. I want to be content that, like, I'm very happy with my life and the way it's worked out. And I'm also very excited for, like, I'm like I'm 39. I feel like I've still got a lot more fun shit to do and like places to see and traveling to do and like whatever. Like I just want to feel like I lived a full life, even if it means I didn't live the longest life.
Yep.
You know, and I don't know. I'm not like, and going back to what you said, like with the peaceful dream, where when you were confronted with like, okay, this is the end, and you felt at peace. I've had that feeling so many times, where I've like, okay, I'm surfing. It's kind of big, like I'm not in the best shape. Like I probably shouldn't be out here. I'm getting held down longer than I think.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I could fucking drown right now. I'm being tumbled underwater and I'm at peace. You know, or I'm in a
It's a nice feeling.
I'm in a situation where like I'm riding too fast and a dude in front of me cuts me off and I lock up my brakes and I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm going to die right now." And it's a peaceful feeling. And it's kind of telling where it's like we're so scared of that. We're so scared of like, if I do this, I could die. But every time I've been in the situation where I think I'm going to die, like
You're ready for it.
I feel like, okay, I'm going to die right now. Shit. Like, it's cool. And like, it's not ever how I think it's going to be.
Right.
It's always super mellow. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think just do.
Nobody's going out thinking. Well, not nobody, but a lot of people. They're not going out thinking. Okay, you know the random death. It's not happening. You're not planning this. You're not planning your death. Yeah.
But I think it's good also to just be like, okay, live your life the way you're going to live it, the way that you feel is the best way. And you could die at any moment and just fucking do it.
Well,
You could get hit by a fucking car tomorrow, you know, riding your bike to work. And it's not like nothing of your own doing. Like
yeah.
some like,
I'd rather go out that way, honestly.
yeah,
I'd
somebody
rather go
talking
out
on
just.
her cell phone.
If I get hit on my bicycle riding to work, I'd rather just die right then and there. I don't want to wake up in a hospital. You know what I mean? I don't want to die in a hospital. I'd rather just die on the road.
Well, I'd rather
But
get hit by a car and then get better and then keep living. I would definitely rather that. Like, I don't want to die,
right.
but I'm perfect. Every time I've been confronted with, okay, you're probably going to die right now, I've been at peace.
Yeah, ready for it.
You know, like, and not even ready for it, because how can you be ready for it? You know?
I mean, just being able to go out peacefully and just being able to accept it for what it may be. You know what I mean? Fighting it, I feel like, would be the most traumatic way to go out. Fighting it tooth and nail. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
That seems like that would just be stressful and painful and agony.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like both of my great grandparents died in their sleep. One was 98 and one was 102. Like I would much rather go out like that.
Absolutely.
But I think it is like when it's your time, it's your time. And I don't know if something controls it or nothing controls it, or if there's a God or there's not a God. But I think, like, also if there is a God and I lived my life as, like, a good dude and I didn't fuck people over and I was nice to people and, you know, I just lived my life in, like, a pretty, like, kind of righteous way. Like, if God's not a dick and there is a God, then I'm going to be cool. And if there is no God, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I'm fine with all of it. And if God's a dick, I don't think I want to spend the rest of my life with him anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that's that kind of boils it down for me.
Well, I think it's about time to wrap this up.
I'm into it.
Dude, it was awesome that you just happened to fucking walk into Downbeat yesterday, and I was like, oh, hey, you're in town.
It happens.
We get to hang out now.
And we didn't even plan on doing it. I was like, oh, we should do this next time.
Yeah.
But we did it this time.
Yep.
It worked.
Right on, man. I love
All right,
you.
dog.
Thank
I love
you
you
so
too.
much.
Cheers.